Hello everyone, Venk Potula. Thank you for downloading the latest episode of the Indian Startup Show. So today I speak to Venk Potula. Venk is an award-winning Indian-American filmmaker, actor, producer, and now the creator of a brand new Indian-American fiction podcast called Masala Jones. It's a subversive and daring new comedy about one man's journey to become the world's first, wait for it, Indian-American adult actor. So I've heard the first two episodes, I absolutely love it, and it's had great reviews as well. So Venk talks about his life in Hollywood as an Indian American, how he came up with the idea, his entrepreneurial spirit, an amazing story of how he got discovered, what fame is really like and what comes with it, his dream role. We go through his IMDb, he's appeared in Veep, and finally a great story about playing a zombie. Just make sure you're not eating anything, and much, much more. So please enjoy the show. Thank you. Hi Venk, thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell the listeners what you're doing, please.
Absolutely. So my name is Venk Potula. I am a filmmaker. I'm an actor based out of Los Angeles. I'm also an entrepreneur. I definitely consider myself an entrepreneur. First, actually, in a lot of ways. And I've been out here for the last 8 to 9 years after my schooling from UCLA, where I studied film and television and acting. And I've been working ever since.
Great. And tell me about this interesting podcast that you've done.
Absolutely. So Masala Jones is the title of the show, and it's about an Indian guy who drops out of med school to pursue his dreams of becoming a porn star in LA. It's a comedy TV series that is completely scripted. So imagine it's like you're watching an HBO show, but just for your ears, almost like a radio drama. That currently is on Apple Podcasts, and it's 6 episodes, 20 minutes each. So it's built in such a way that when you listen to it, you feel like you're immersed within the world and you're with the characters as they go on this journey.
Excellent. I heard the first 2 episodes. I was very impressed. How did you come up with the idea?
So I knew that I wanted to make a podcast. The idea first came because I knew that, as a performer, as an actor here in LA, it's hard to break through the mold. So a lot of people out here say you should create your own content. And a lot of people are making short films, they're making movies, they're making web series. But I thought, what about a podcast? What about a scripted narrative podcast? Because I was very highly influenced by another podcast called Homecoming, which is sort of a sort of conspiracy theory drama with a bunch of really talented actors like Oscar Isaac and David Schwimmer and Catherine Keener in it. And they've turned the rights of that podcast into a TV show, and it's actually airing now on Amazon Prime with Julia Roberts. And I saw that, and I saw, first of all, the podcast is incredibly well done by Gimlet. And I saw that the space in terms of narrative podcasting is all completely sort of inundated with a lot of true crime dramas, but you didn't see a lot of comedy representation. You didn't see a lot of things that would, like TV shows that make you laugh, like a Seinfeld for your ears. And I thought, okay, maybe there's a market here to go in and create a new kind of show, make a podcast that's comedy that could break through the mold and, with the dream of being able to sell the rights and make it a TV show. So that's how it started. I approached my creative collaborator, who none of this would have been possible without Leland Frankel. Mm-hmm. And we had a working relationship in the past. We made a couple shorts that were very successful in the film festival world. And I told him, I said, look, I want to make a podcast. And the idea started off, the conversation was, let's talk about, I wanted to talk about being an Indian guy, being a brown guy in America, being Indian American, and sort of some of the funny yet also, difficult struggles that I've had in the entertainment business. And he, at the time, was actually dating someone who worked in the adult film industry. And it was, they just went out a few times, but I think the idea was just on his mind in terms of what that world is like. And so he's like, boom. Porn, let's set it there. And it was sort of like a mind blow situation for the two of us, where we're like, oh, this is incredible. We have to, this has legs and we can really make this thing happen. And that was about 1.5 years ago today.
Who you're trying to attract?
With this podcast?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's definitely been, I think it's been a little male-centric, but honestly, we've been getting a lot of women representation as well because of the sex positivity aspect of the show and sort of pointing out the sex worker aspect of it and sort of promoting them in a positive way, because it's a world that people don't think about a lot. And so, these actors, they're just actors, and it is just a job. And I think it's very easy to have a stigma around the performers who work in the adult film industry. And so I think one of the most surprising reactions that we've gotten from people is they're like, what's interesting? I'm listening to the show and I'm like, these guys are just people. They just have a job. And I think it helps bridge that gap. But I think the audience has been specifically, it's been people who love similar shows like Master of None, Insecure, Issa Rae's content, things like that, where half-hour sort of dramedy content. So that's sort of where we've sort of found our niche, and where people are really enjoying the show.
So, how much research did you have to do for this role?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I guess that is one thing I forgot to mention, which is that I do play the role of Masala Jones. Okay. I think honestly, we both created the show together, so we're both very involved. Leland wrote everything, though. Every word that is written belongs to him, but we were both involved in terms of creating the characters and coming up with the idea for the show, and me sort of bringing what the Indian influences to the table with the parents, etc. So I was really involved with the character with Samar, so I knew where he was coming from. And by the time, we wrote every single episode, and we even tried to shop it around to different podcasts and networks, which everyone rejected us, of course. And then we decided to just self-produce it ourselves. So that came about halfway into the process. So at that time, I was really comfortable with the character and what the journey was going to be. Where does he start and where does he end? And how does he find himself through this world? So that was very clear to me. So when we recorded it, which we did the whole thing in about 3 days, well, even less actually, because it was, just chunks of 3 to 4 hours. That was the other advantage I pitched Leland in the beginning was, look, podcasting, the reason why you're able to get somebody like David Schwimmer, Catherine Keener for that show Homecoming is they recorded the whole thing in one day, because you can record an entire audio is much easier to work with as a medium than film. You can record an entire season in 3 hours for some characters. And so that was another financial advantage, was that the low overhead is much, it's cheaper to make than making even one small short film. So, yeah.
You mentioned rejection. What was the sort of main reasons why it rejected? But obviously, you worked in Hollywood, you probably get used to rejection.
Yeah, of course you get used to it. Well, actually, I'm not sure. I don't think you ever really get used to it. You just find a way to move on. I mean, it still sucks, But I think the main reasons were, the companies that we did reach out to, they were interested in the show and they liked it. That was one thing that was positive, is that everyone was like, they took the meeting, right? They wanted to meet with us. They wanted to see what is here. I think for some networks, the subject matter was a little too edgy for them, just because we really are attacking this world, not attacking them in a negative way, but really diving into it. And I think the stigmas, et cetera, were something that, some of the networks didn't want their brand to be aligned with. And the second reason, I think, if that wasn't an issue, it was that we had kind of already built the show out. So we had completely created and written all 6 episodes, completely scripted, kind of ready to go. And at the time, we were looking for a partner to just help us with the execution aspect, help us with the actually creating the podcast and the marketing of it, and take that second half process. But I think a lot of those companies wanted to be involved in the development process. They wanted to get in, maybe change creative things. But when they saw that we kind of were firm in how we saw the show and how we wanted it to be, they were like, this is not for us. We want to get more in the development aspect of the show.
And who else is in the podcast?
So that's a huge cast. So we have Timothy Stack, who actually was my screenwriting professor at UCLA. I was taking a half-hour comedy TV writing class, and he's been around the industry for a long time. He's a writer, very talented writer and actor. Ravi Kapoor is in it, who's a director and actor also. He started the show Crossing Jordan. His wife, who his actual wife is Mira, and Mira Simhan, and they play husband and wife, and she's also an actress. Esther Koo is a stand-up comedian. She's been on the show Wild and Out with me as well, Last Comic Standing. And I mean, the list really goes on. My friend Mimi Torres and James Allen McCune, who's known for his roles on The Walking Dead and Shameless. And Christos Vasilopoulos, who's known for his roles on Banshee and on The Last Ship, who plays the villain, the crazy TV porn director guy. And of course, Aurora Snow, who used to be, she's retired, but she used to actually she used to be a working adult actress, and she won sort of all the AVN awards, which are sort of the Oscars of the adult industry. And it was really important to me that we had an actress, an actual adult film actress, who is popular to voice one of the roles, because it gives a legitimacy to the show and specifically what that character represents and what she's saying. And then we have a cameo in the end by Riley Nixon, who is currently working in the industry today.
Good stuff. Let's talk about you then. You mentioned UCLA. UCLA. That sounds a very prestigious university.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So what was the key takeaway from your time there?
I think the key takeaway that I got from UCLA, I mean, I very much wanted a university where, I'm a very driven kind of a guy, and I wanted I'm not used to being spoon-fed anything. So I'm used to sort of being a hustler and going for it. I mean, if you ask my friends, what they would say about me, that's definitely probably the first word that they would say is he's a hustler, So UCLA was a great environment for me because it gave me the opportunities, it wouldn't force me to do anything, but I took it upon my own initiative I took a lot of classes in the film program, even though I wasn't a film student, in the MFA program and the master's program. I feel like I got a 0.25 master's education, to be honest, because I took advantage of every single class. I was always taking as many units as I could. I would audit more than I could, more than was necessary, just because I loved learning. And so I think the key takeaway for me was just, keep going, because I found that the busier I got, the more productive I was. And the less busy I am now, that's one of the struggles since graduating is, how do I continue to have a positive, workflow and not just be busy for busy's sake? And it was a lot easier when I had to worry about some paper to focus on the things I really wanted to, even though I was so busy. So that's sort of been a bit of a transition, but definitely, key takeaway was to take advantage of every single resource that you have. And really research those things and use everything you have to your advantage and build great relationships with friends. A lot of the friends that I have then, Leland and I, for example, met at UCLA, and so, and it's been such a wonderful collaboration since then. So,
Leland's very interesting because I went on his website. According to his bio, writes, produces content for virtual reality, including the first original musical for VR.
Yes.
That sounds amazing.
It is amazing. No, he
How does that work?
I think, and I've been a part of, some of his theater endeavors as well. Leland is also involved with musical theater. He does a lot of theater work, and I'm definitely a supporter, and I definitely go and support the shows that he's doing. But I know he works as a copywriter in advertising in VR, and he writes a lot of those storylines. He's really an incredible writer. And also a director as well. He directs music videos.
Cool. Good stuff. I'm just looking at your IMDb.
Yeah.
It says, Venk was discovered by Nick Cannon dancing on the street in Los Angeles. Tell me about that.
That is true. Well, okay. So here's the Nick Cannon story. Okay. Okay. So I was, I think I was in 18, 19. It was my first year in college, and I had an audition. I didn't have an agent or anything at the time, but there was this movie called The Internship with Owen Wilson and Vince. And so they were looking for a class. They were looking for an IT brown guy. You know what I mean? And so because they were looking for somebody younger, they had to. Because they were looking for someone younger, they reached out to the college universities and the campuses to find somebody. So they were like, "Hey, UCLA, do you have any brown people?" And they were like, "We got one guy." And so I went and auditioned, but actually what happened was I was so nervous in the audition room that I went outside and I just started running up and down the street just dancing because I wanted to get the nerves out of my system, and I'm very comfortable with myself. So in that moment on that street, this car pulls up on the road, the window rolls down, and this guy's like, "Dude, you're hilarious. I'm going to put you in my movie." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I gave him a little business card, which I had one for being an actor. And I got an email later saying, "Yo, it's Nick Cannon. I'm doing a movie starting June 4th. I'm going to have a part for you in it." And so it was Nick on the street in the car. I didn't recognize him. I didn't even know Nick Cannon was a man who existed in the world. Yeah. Turns out he's married to Mariah Carey, or was at the time. Yeah. And that led to a very long collaboration where we did a lot of different, we did some movies, a lot of TV appearances. I basically became this sort of guy who dances all the time, right. and became a sort of personal concierge, aptly named Guru Venkatesh. Okay. And I would dress in an all-white suit, and I'd kind of follow him everywhere and sort of hold up a mirror to his face so he could check out his sexiness. You know what I'm saying? So he could be like, "I'm looking good." I mean, it was kind of a little bit of a gag that just kind of kept going, and people liked it. So
sounds great.
That's how it's with Nick.
Yeah. How did you start acting then? Did you have like proper training classes, acting classes?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started performing when I was 12, and I went to a performing arts high school in Atlanta, which is where I'm from, called the Cab School of the Arts, which really I think changed my life. At the same school that Donald Glover went to, Childish Gambino. That's sort of our claim to fame, which is certainly something to say. And then after that, when I went to UCLA, I definitely took professional classes. I took Shakespeare. We studied classical work, verse, breaking down the scripts, script analysis, movement. And movement in theater classes is like running around and standing in walls and just looking at them randomly. It's weird stuff, but it really frees you up and gets you to let go of your inhibitions, which is part of the objective is to not have a barrier when you're acting.
Do you think anyone can be an actor then?
Yeah, I think so. I think any human can be an actor, but I think it takes a certain aptitude or a certain, I think, philosophy in some ways, or just an openness to really excel in it. But yeah, anyone can be an actor.
Because I'm looking at your IMDb, you're in Veep, which is, I'm sure everyone was aware of. What was that like?
I mean, incredible experience being able to work on this Emmy award-winning show with everyone on that show. Is just they just had everything together, and it was a bit part. It was a small thing, and you'd be amazed to see how difficult it is to get even just 2 words on a show like Veep. It's incredibly hard, and but they, it was great. We had a little rehearsal. We finished the whole thing. The thing was about 5 hours shoot. That was it. But working with Matt Walsh and Anna Chlumsky in that scene, we did a lot of improv back and forth. The showrunner, Dave Mandel, was shouting out sort of crazy lines to say just from the back. He was like, now say this, blah, 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 blah. And then you just say it. You know what I mean? And it was just a lot of joke pitches, and definitely, it was certainly stressful for me because I was like, you got to make sure you got everything together and you can execute, you know what I mean? But also you have to remember to be loose, to have fun, and it is a comedy show, so let go.
Did you ever get like starstruck when you were there?
On Veep? No, not so much on Veep. I mean, I've definitely had I don't know. Starstruck I've definitely had moments. I've had opportunities to work with Kevin Hart a few times, and that was certainly. I wouldn't say it was because at the time he wasn't. I mean, that was like 2013, 2014, so he wasn't as big as he is now. But now he's huge. But it was. Well, I wouldn't say starstruck, but it was just great to work with these people. It was an honor, really. I was like, this is great that I can work with these people who are on Veep and et cetera, these really talented performers.
But let's say that you become like an A-list star. How would you deal with the fame? How will you walk down the streets, getting mobbed all the time?
Neil, because I've been with Nick and also James Franco as my professor in university for 2 years, and I really got to see what that looks like. You know what I mean? From kind of the inside, especially with Nick, and because I spent so much time, and it certainly geared me up for, okay, this is what I'm signing up for. If this goes the way that it might go, this is sort of what I'm signing up for, and to understand what comes with it, right? Because I was on my end, I feel like I saw a lot of the negative aspects, or not necessarily negative, but just sort of the things that you don't think about when you think about fame. You think about the red carpets and the signing the autographs and all that stuff, but you kind of don't think about how exhausted you are when you come back to the hotel because you've been signing autographs all day, and then you have to somehow memorize these lines for your show, and then make sure that you get up in the morning and get no sleep. Like that lifestyle, I really got to experience, and something I'll never take for granted. Working with Nick specifically, and then also having James as a professor. So look, if it happens, I think I'll be ready for it, and know how to parse my energies up so that I can do what I need to do.
Good stuff. Sounds cool. What would be your dream role then?
My dream role. Honestly, I would love to do a movie. I would love to do a movie like 21 Jump Street, where it's kind of like an action comedy where it's the, two sort of best friends, one who thinks he's too cool for school, which would probably be me, and, do something Well, look, I love Bollywood. Let me tell you, Neil. I mean, I grew up with that stuff, and I've loved to get as many slow motion shots as possible. So I definitely want to do something that's fun and something that people can relate to, and they get something out of it, get a laugh. Maybe they learn something new. I think it's less about the role for me and more about the movie. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's sort of the kind of role that I'd love to do now.
I have to ask you about one of your movies that you did, UZLA.
Yes.
You played a dorm creeper in 2018.
I did play a dorm creeper. So that was a film. That was a film that my friend Dallas King directed as his thesis film at UCLA, and that was interesting because it was an entire week shoot. You shoot at night, and you throw all this blood on. And I was playing a zombie essentially. And let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you a story that I probably shouldn't tell you, but let me tell you, it was defining my experience on UCLA, and it was basically that. So the way every zombie, right, and whatever it's Walking Dead, etc., they have a way that they infect you, right? So Dallas's idea of how the zombies would infect you was that they stand on top of you and spit blood in your mouth. Okay? So I'm doing the scene. Oh my God, I don't even want to relive this moment, but let me tell you, this is what happened. I'm on the ground, and I happened to get it still would have been bad, but it would have been kind of okay if it was at least a female. No, it was this 6'6", huge behemoth sweating guy of a man standing on top of me, and he has to spit in my mouth. And he's spitting this blood, and it's not even like, it's like this prosthetic type of blood, and he spits in your blood, and here's the worst part, it was warm. He was warm, and it's in there, and you got to hold it in there, and you hold it in there for the whole take. And let me tell you, it was one of those things where you're like, this is what we do as actors, is we get blood in our mouths, and we take it, and we do what we need to do. But it was a great experience, a lot of night shoots, like I said, and very fun with that cast.
Good stuff. And where do you want to go with this? Because looking at your IMDb, you've done editing, producing, director, writer.
Yeah,
so much done a lot here. I mean, it's quite impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've definitely done a lot. That's true. Well, I think what you're seeing more and more now in the entertainment business is you're getting people like Aziz Ansari, like Mindy Kaling, like Issa Rae, who are not just actors, and they're not just directors, they're not just writers, they're not just showrunners. They do everything. I think you see that a lot in comedy as well, just out of necessity, because when you have a vision for something, only you can execute it. Nobody else can recreate Mindy Kaling's voice. Nobody else can recreate Aziz's voice. So I think that's sort of the direction that I'm going in, is sort of being a multi-hyphenate. And I mean, look, Nick is also the same way. Nick Cannon, he's not just he's also a businessman. He has a tie line, shirts. He has the headphone line, but then he's also a host. He's also an actor. He's also a stand-up comedian. And I think it's this whole thing of sort of diverse forms of income in a way, and just sort of, when you're a creative individual, that can bleed into many different mediums. So I'm finding that I fit that category more, as opposed to just being an actor, just being a director, which there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. And I have friends who are very talented in those specific areas, but they're really just fit for that specific skill, as opposed to, and I've sort of found, as being a person of color, being a brown guy out here in LA, where there's not a lot of us, the opportunity, because I started off really just wanting to be an actor. My goal, Neil, was to hit it big that way. And basically that didn't happen. and I'm auditioning and not getting these roles. And I'm basically like, well, what do I do? If it's not going to be acting, what am I, And you realize it's not about Venk the actor. It's about Venk the human, Venk the artist. What does that person have to say? And I was very attached to that idea of, this is my label. I'm just this, and if I'm not that, then I'm a nothing. And it's very easy because I definitely have, I'm very good at putting pressure on myself, which I can work well under, but at the same time, it can also be my downfall in a lot of ways. So I had to kind of let go of that identity. I just went to India, actually. I was there for a month recently, and I just got back, and it was such a humbling experience because first of all, I'd never been to India. I had been, but it had been 16 years. So it'd been a very long time. I hadn't been really as an adult, and seeing, there's the poverty level is so high, and yet people are so happy. They're just so grateful to have whatever it is that they do have, and your obligation there is not to any label, like being a professional label necessarily, and being an actor or being a writer, et cetera. It's just about how do you live a good life. So I think when you step back and think about those things, you realize, whether on IMDb says just acting or has all these sort of things, at the end of the day, the direction is, the answer to your question is, what's the future going to be? Well, it's going to be Venk Potula, and however that manifests, I'm trying these different things. I'm interested in this right now. That could change, but we'll kind of see what the road ends up being.
What advice would you give to people who want to get into the entertainment industry?
I don't know if you know Tim Ferriss.
Yeah. 4 hour work time.
4 hour work week and all that stuff. I certainly I'm a big fan of all of that, of the Tim Ferriss, of the Gary Vee, of the sort of the entrepreneurial spirit of working. And I really think there's no excuse. If you don't get into UCLA or USC or, I would just say, like, really try to look at the network that you have. Look at Robert Rodriguez. He directed his first feature film for $7,000 and used his brother, his family, as the cast members. You know what I mean? Like, really look at the people that you have around you who support you. And if you have a vision that you want to do something, because look, if you want to be in the entertainment business, you have a passion. Ideally you're passionate about it and you want to do something that's going against the grain. Look at the people around you who support you and do things with them, whether you want to put up a play, whether you want to practice your stand-up comedy, whether you want to write a script together and then shoot it on your iPhone. Like, there's no excuse. And I think the other thing to know is you don't have to be in LA to do this. What I mean when I say that is, let's say you live in the UK, let's say you live in India, let's say you live in, Arkansas. I don't know. Because you don't have to, being in LA doesn't change anything, because the thing that's going to do anything for you is you. The reason why your career will change or why you're going to grow as an artist is because of the effort that you put into it. And that's been a lesson that's been very hard for me to learn, because I kind of was blessed with sort of being in the quote unquote Hollywood very early, and it's a very weird place to be in when you're like, what do I do? And what I did was I was so scared about losing those opportunities that I was just trying to maintain those relationships and be likable, which ultimately made me unlikable. Like when you see that guy who's running around super desperate, trying to get everyone's phone numbers, trying to get everyone's email address. That was me, because I'm a hustler. But the problem was I didn't really know what I was hustling for. So I think take the time to figure out that. I think at the end of the day, if you're an actor, if you want to be a creative person, that's what you are first. So figure out what you want to say. Whatever it is, whether you want to make horror movies and scare people, or whether you want to do comedies, make people laugh, or you want to do dramas, make people cry, like whatever it is that you want to do, figure out internally where you're at. And I know that's a journey in life, and that's things that you ultimately find as you grow. But I think focusing on that more than I got to get an agent, because I know so many people who are like, I got to get an agent, I got to get a manager. If only I get that first co-star role. And I definitely fit in that category at the time, where I was like, all I need to do is just get that first thing. Then it'll lead to this. And then you go to parties here in LA and everyone's like, man, I'm at the guest star level. I'm at the recurring guest. I just need to get to that series regular level. You know what I mean? And it's this constant cycle of just, ego. And it's very unhealthy, to be honest. Honestly, if I were you, I would stay out of LA because this place has, there's definitely a lot of people come here to try to do it, but there's a lot of ego, a lot of vanity, and you can get lost in that sometimes. So, my advice is really just try to find out what you want to say. And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. Just start with something that you like. Like I tell my little brother, he's like, it's a hard thing to ask of somebody, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to, you're expected to know at 17 years old whether you're going to be, and especially in India, my mom, classic example, in the 10th grade, she had to pick math or science. Forget about acting. You know what I mean? And then if you pick science, guess what? For the rest of your life, you're going to do science. You're going to be a doctor. You know what I mean? So there are these incredible high expectations, and it's okay not to know. But what I say is start with what you like. Mm-hmm. Look, do you like playing video games? That's fine. There's people who make millions of dollars playing video games. You know what I'm saying? So the money isn't really the thing. it's figuring out what is the thing that you want to say, what is the thing that you want to do. And I think if you start there, start the journey, understand it's going to be a journey, and it's not going to be something that will happen immediately, but that you're on a path and that it will unfold itself out to you.
Awesome.
I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that's awesome. Awesome. I'm blown away. Absolutely, totally blown away. Last few questions then.
Yeah, sure.
Don't give the ending away, but I mean, could there be like a sequel to this? Perhaps?
To Masala Jones?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a sort of cliffhanger at the end of the episode 6 that we have in terms of what happens to Samar. And let me just put it this way: there's once you see one brown guy making it in the porn industry, you might see another one. So there's copycats, right? There's people who are trying to steal your thunder. So I think, like any business, the more success you get, the more the pressure goes up, and the more that you have to raise your game. You know what I mean? In some ways, it's easy to be the underdog and be the guy who has nothing to lose because you got nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. But when you have something to lose, then all of a sudden the pressure's on a little bit more. So absolutely, there's the season 2 in development, and we're actually in the process right now of talking to some production companies and agents about getting this thing out to the Netflixes and Amazons of the world.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Last question, actually, what are you working on right now then? Can you tell our listeners anything interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a TV pilot that I just shot called Subs, which is about 2 substitute teachers who are rivals fighting against each other. They're trying to compete for a role, for a teaching position. It's a comedy. I've got a drama short. It's actually a little bit more close to home. It's called Samskara, which is about two Indian American siblings who have to figure out how to perform the right Hindu ceremony for their Hindu father, but they don't have no idea how to do anything because I'm Indian American. Like, I don't know how to do this thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a drama about that, and yeah, right now it's at this point, the last few years have been developing the projects that I've been working on, and now it's just releasing them. So those 2 shorts, Masala Jones, absolutely. Please go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and rate, listen to the show, comment, let us know what you think, subscribe, etc. And then of course I got a couple feature films in development. And look, you can never tell me, Neil, what are you working on, Venk, and I won't have 1,000 thanks. I'll always be working on 1,000 thanks.
I'll tell you what. If people want more information on you and the podcast, what must they do?
So if you want more information, what you should do is you should follow. Probably the best thing to do is to follow me on Instagram, which is @Venk VENK Potula. I have links to the podcast on there. You can check it out, and then you'll also see about all these other things I'm talking about. But that's probably the best way. You can also just search on Google Masala Jones, and you'll find the podcast on whichever platform you like best, whether it's Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, whatever works best for you.
Venk, thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Neil.
Good luck with everything. Thanks to Venk for coming on the show today. Check out the show notes if you want to listen. That's the end of the show. If you liked it, please leave a rating or review of the show. Just search for the Indian Startup Show on iTunes, Castbox India, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Downcast, Instacast, Podkick, and Apple TV. And if you're building something exciting, please send me an email, hello@neilpatel.co, or tweet @IndianStartupSH, or go to facebook.com/Indian Startup Show. Let's connect. Thank you and goodbye.